I am drawn to guests who have allowed God access to the wounds in their life, because that wound can be a place of healing for them as well as others. And I think that's what's going to happen today for foster parents or adoptive parents, and especially for those who were raised disconnected from your first family. Because if you are in any of those categories, or if you know someone in any of those categories, Mary Ann's lived experience is going to encourage you. It's going to give you hope. It's going to validate some of the feelings you probably have. And we hope help you take the next step today. She writes, I am not a polished success story, but God asked me to say yes, even when it meant revisiting painful places. Many of us have been misunderstood, labeled, or passed through systems that never saw us. We carry wounds from families, foster homes, churches, and schools. Still, we are here. And the phrase that jumped out at me was systems that never saw us. A number on a case file, a statistic in a sea of statistics. You are more than that. And I'm glad Dr. Mary Ann McMillan is going to join us straight ahead on the program From the Heart to the Heart for the Heart, online at chrisfabrylive.org. Let me thank our team, Ryan McConaughey, doing all things technical. Tricia McMillan's our producer. Lisa's here. Happy birthday, Lisa. Josh will be answering your calls. And thank you, friends and partners who support us financially. Each month, I choose something that I think you'll enjoy and benefit from. And I was so excited when I heard, this has been probably about a year ago or more, I heard Phil and Kevin were putting together a celebration of 100 years of Moody Radio. Can you believe we started in 1926? I wasn't around then, but we started back 100 years ago, and this book walks you through the decades with pictures, with history, with memorabilia. It's fascinating. If Moody Radio has made a difference in your life, call or click through, give a gift of any size. I want you to have a copy. We're right in the middle of July. Today would be a great day. Call 866-95-FABRY, 866-953-2279, or go to chrisfabrylive.org. I say this program is from, for, and to the heart. This book is the same. It captures the soul of so many who have proclaimed the gospel for 100 years in speech and in song. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. Scroll down, you'll see it right there. This is Moody Radio, 100 years proclaiming the gospel. Let us hear from you today, chrisfabrylive.org. Okay, I got to settle down. Your support means we get to have today's conversation that may not touch your life directly. You might not be an adoptive parent. You might not be a foster parent. You might not have been in the foster system or adopted yourself. But this group of people, I believe, is so important to God. He sees you today. And I believe the church can have a huge impact on those right in the middle of that struggle. When I saw Dr. McMillan's book was coming out, it releases next Tuesday, I said a very quick yes, not only because of the research included, not only because of the sound theology and the practical help it gives, but also because it's written by someone who has lived this. Dr. Mary Ann McMillan is a former foster youth and adoptee whose life has been shaped by the realities of family separation, identity rupture, and the lifelong search for belonging. She's a professor, researcher, writer, and global advocate, holds a doctorate in education, and teaches courses in human rights, criminal justice, and international relations. Her academic work focuses on vulnerable children, both in the U.S. and globally. And the featured resource, we have a link right there, chrisfabrylive.org, Bridging Resilience. And the subtitle is long, but it's very good description. A guide to healing for adoptees and former foster youth, families, and the leaders who walk with them. So everybody's included. Again, Bridging Resilience. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. Dr. McMillan, welcome to the program. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great that you were here. And I was telling you before we went on the program that I get an awful lot of pitches. And as soon as I didn't even see the book, I saw the press release for this. It's like, yes, I've got to have Dr. McMillan on the program because I know there are so many people who are right in the crosshairs of what you're writing about today. And I want to read you a quote from the beginning of the book. You say, healing is not simple or quick. It means telling the truth, finding words for what we endured, and seeking support. Forgiveness will look different for each of us, and sometimes the only forgiveness possible is the kind we give ourselves. That is enough. You are not failing. You are human. Unpack why you wrote that toward the beginning of the book.
Yes, for me in the last, 15 years, I would say that I've been walking through this healing journey. I came out of what adoptees or trauma therapists would say come out of the adoptee fog, where those that have been adopted will start processing their adoption. Things have just not felt right for years, and they couldn't figure out why they were feeling the way that they were feeling. And so they start processing their adoption. And so for me, it has been a long process of being in therapy during different seasons of life. Definitely being in therapy almost every week in the last 10 years. But I wanted readers to know that healing will take place for life for adoptees and former foster youth. I know for me, I don't want to be healed. I want to continue to be healing because if I am healed and perfect, then I'm not going to need a savior. And for me, my relationship with the Lord is the most important thing ever.
You've just put your finger on that encapsulates it, because I hear that, I want healing. I want to be healed. I want to arrive, in other words. And what you're saying is, with everything that you went through as a child and then into your adulthood, what you want is God to walk through the valley of the shadow with you rather than to get you to the place where everything is fine, right?
Absolutely. It's a journey. It's not a destination. You're going to constantly be healing for the rest of your life.
The trip that you took to Rwanda really changed your life. It opened your eyes. Tell me about that and how long ago it was.
Yes, so that was almost 10 years ago. I moved to California 10 years ago to work at a church. And I'd been a full-time missionary or done short-term missions for years, but I'd never stepped foot on the continent of Africa. And so within my first week of working there, they said, well, part of your job is you're going to be going to Rwanda. We have a partnership with Rwanda, and we've been doing work with Rwanda since the genocide. And so I went. I was there, a part of an orphan care and HIV team doing work, but I was also there to do research for my dissertation that I was writing at the time. And I had the opportunity to speak in different churches, sharing my testimony, sharing my journey. And after each time that I gave a message, there would be so many people just sitting there crying. And for me, I'm like, okay, my story is great. It's powerful, but not the way people should be sitting here just crying. And I asked a friend of mine who lives there and works there, why are people crying? And he said, it's your story. He says, millions of them have the same story because they all lost their parents during the genocide. And one person came up to me and they were asking me a little bit more about my story. And he said, how can you have so much joy? And for me, my answer was, it's my relationship with the Lord. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today without my relationship with the Lord. But that was a huge piece of my story. But also being in Rwanda as a Black person, and it was my first time not having to be a minority. That's an experience that I've never gone through in life because I've been in predominantly white spaces. Yes, I was adopted by a Black family, but the majority of the schools and places that I've worked have been in predominantly white spaces. And so that alone was an experience that I wasn't expected to actually go through, but was so impactful.
I want to get to that. I want to go back to Rwanda, though, when the people said that, you have this joy, you've dealt with all of these things so well in your life. You also felt like, you saw that a lot of that was on the surface, that underneath that, there was more struggle than you wanted to admit. Is that true?
Absolutely. That's when I realized, okay, maybe I should up my counseling sessions weekly, because there was just a lot of things that I saw during that trip with families that were fostering children, or just talking with people that had lost their parents. I realized, okay, I haven't really done the work that I really should be doing. And so when I came back from that trip, I literally found a new therapist, and I've been in therapy every week since that trip, because there's just so much to unpack, not just the adoption itself, but the past, my birth parents, my adopted family, that I needed to not stuff anymore. And I needed some of this to come out.
There is somebody listening right now, and you're saying, would you say the title of that book again? Because this is exactly what I'm living as a parent or foster parent. It's exactly what I'm living in my own life. This, what Dr. McMillan talks about as a fragmented identity. Who am I with everything that has gone on in my life? So I'll give you that information, but I want you to do this. I want you to write down the phone number, because there's somebody who needs to call and tell us what your story is and how you're dealing with it, because somebody else needs to hear your question, your story. 877-548-3675. 877-548-3675. The title of the book is Bridging Resilience. Remember those two words, Bridging Resilience. You can find out more about it at the website, chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. More straight ahead on Moody Radio. This is Chris Fabry Live. Dr. Marianne McMillan is joining us today at the back fence. She has written a guide to healing for adoptees and former foster youth, families, and the leaders who walk with them. It's titled Bridging Resilience. Featured resource at chrisfabrylive.org. I have so many questions, and maybe the best first question here, Marianne, is Tricia just said, Lisa and I want to know why that title. What is Bridging Resilience? So let's start there. Why those two words together?
One, bridging. I just feel like with a part of my healing journey and walking through life, the Lord has always placed someone in my life to really help me through that season. If it was a teacher or supervisor or a counselor. And so for me, I wouldn't be where I am today without my relationship with the Lord, but also people in my life that have helped be a guide for me through life. And then resilience. Resilience is a word that is always used for adoptees and former foster youth. We are expected to be resilient. We're called resilient. We're called strong. And so I wanted people to know that, yes, we are strong, but we're not strong by ourselves. We have this bridge of people that have come alongside us or come alongside me to really help me through this journey. So that's why I decided just to put those two words together.
Is it hard for adoptees and former foster youth to open themselves up to having those guides? Is that one of the struggles that you have to walk through?
I know for me, it has been. For others that I've spoken with, it is hard for them as well, but not for all of us. And so, because there's a lot of adoptees and former foster youth that don't feel like they need to process their path. They don't feel like they are having any problems, which is fine. They have such great parents and have a great story. But then there are a lot of us who just really need help. But feel like we don't have the tools or resources.
I've heard that from some before who have been adopted, and if you ask the question, do you ever want to find out, where? No, I don't, because my adoptive parents are my parents. They aren't adoptive parents. They were, and it's almost like, don't ask me that question because you're casting aspersion on my parents who raised me. Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
Absolutely. And I know for me, when I started this process, I actually asked my mom and several family members if they would be okay with me writing this book. And so I didn't need their permission, but I wanted to at least give them a heads up, and I wanted to hear just their thoughts and opinions on it because um, I was able to talk about my adoption growing up with my adopted mom, but we never really went into the details of like how I was feeling. It was more of just her story of adopting us and a little bit about my birth family. Even though I had an open adoption, so I did know my birth family. But I lost my train of thought. I'm so
No, it's
sorry.
okay. It's good. So what I told you in the break I was going to have you do, let's do that now, and that is just when you went to Rwanda and you told your story, how did you begin? What did you say about your beginning and what happened to you as a baby?
Yeah, so I shared that at the time, I shared a different story than what I'm sharing now because, Chris, as I was sharing with you before, I actually got my foster and adoption records about 4 years ago, and the story has changed. I was always told that after I was born, my first foster family came and got me from the hospital, and I was in several different foster homes until I was probably 6 years, 5 or 6 years old. But after I got my records, I was told that I actually lived with my birth mom for a while, for the first 5 months of my life, and then I was placed in foster care. And so when I was sharing my story in Rwanda, I always started there. I was placed in foster care. I was adopted into a family. And I really struggled throughout life with isolation, loneliness, didn't really fit in with my family. And the only way to really get out of that situation was going to college. And college was another experience that just really changed my life because my first week in college, I was invited to the Baptist Student Union and started growing in my faith. I became a believer my first semester in college. And when I look back on my college days, I think about how much I grew in my faith during that season. So I shared a little bit of that when I was sharing just my story, my testimony in Rwanda, and just talk through all of the people that have come alongside of me to help me through this journey. But it's not a success story. I'm still healing. I'm still processing.
Yeah. Okay. So that new information about staying the first 5 to 6 months with your birth mother, what did that, reading that, on the page, what did that Band-Aid ripped off, different than what I've been told? What did that do inside of you?
Yes, for me, I realized my birth mom knew me. She didn't just carry me for 9 months, but I spent 5 months with her, living in a home with her and my three other sisters. And I never had that information. And so, I not only did I get that information, but I found out a little bit more about why I was placed in foster care, just some of my parents' substance abuse use that they have walked through in life, and just the struggle of trying to live in the environment that they were living in. Getting that information kind of allowed me to have a little bit more compassion and empathy for my birth parents because they were struggling. They were trying to do what they needed to do to keep my siblings and I alive, fed, and well. And the story changed of just hearing my birth mom fight for me, fight to try to keep me, did not want me to be placed in foster care, and we were taken from her. And that was hard. It was really hard for her to go out and then come back and her kids are gone. So yes.
That's one of the chapters, compassion, empathy, and forgiveness for birth parents. And it's one of the things that I feel going through the book is that you want to be as kind as you possibly can to the people who gave birth to you and your siblings that were there at the time, or those who were in foster care where you are still dealing with some of the fallout in your life. You want to be as kind as you can, but you have to face the truth in order to move forward in your life. And that's a hard line to walk, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And I haven't shared this yet, but I have 5 sisters and 8 brothers. That's combined with both families. My birth parents had 11 children, and I'm the youngest in that family. And then my adopted mom has three biological children that are 30 years older than me. And then she adopted my sister and I together. And we all have different experiences, from being raised by in foster care or being raised by birth parents, or even my adopted siblings. They have their own stories.
Yes. Okay, so that was one of the things. I'm going to get real specific here. There was something about your hair, and I made a note about this I can't find. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you were a little girl growing up, there was something about your hair that your mom made you do that you didn't want to do, but you had to. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yes, absolutely. So growing up 90s, 2000s, can you still hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. African Americans, we would have to straighten our hair. And so that was just the culture. The culture in this country is straight hair is what's acceptable, what's considered professional. And so I was never allowed to wear what we call my natural hair. So natural pattern for my hair, it's curly, tight coils. And so every 6 to 8 weeks, I would have to go to a hairdresser and get my hair straightened. And I never really understood that because I always wanted to wear my hair natural, and I didn't want to have to go through this process of chemicals and burning my scalp to look like the culture that I was in. I just wanted to be myself. And I didn't start wearing my natural hair until about 10 years ago when I moved to California and started embracing who I am as a Black woman and loving who God created me to be.
Yeah. So even there, and you were talking about, 8 or 10 years old. Is that when it happened? Mm-hmm. So there you see this question of identity. Who am I really? And if I have to do that to my hair, then who am I? And how am I important to the people around me if I have to change from who I am, what my identity is? If I have to change in order to be accepted, what does that say about me? And then you go back, further on back to why didn't my mother raise me? And you have the answers to those questions now, but you didn't back then, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely did not have those at all. And it's interesting because people assume that because I was adopted by a same race family, that I wouldn't have the identity issues that other adoptees have by being Black or adopted by a white family. And that's one section where I wanted people to know I still struggle with those identity issues with being adopted by a Black family.
If you could go back to your mom and who adopted you, and sit down with her when she was taking you, and she probably spent a lot of money on this too.
A lot.
And she probably felt like she was doing a really good thing at the time. But if you could sit down with her and say anything to her, what would you say if you could get in the Wayback Machine?
I don't think there could have been much I could say. My mom was very strong-willed, and there wasn't really much you could say, to be honest. But if I could go back, I think I would question more of why do I have to get my hair done a certain way? Because if it wasn't straightened, then I had to put braids in. And I wish that I would have asked her more just about Black culture, and just the whole process of hair. Because every Black person that is in my life wears their hair a different way. And I didn't realize that was just a part of the culture, not necessarily us like wanting to be or look like other people, if that makes sense. And so I think I would just ask more questions.
That's good. But as a child, you're a child and you just trust the people who are around you and you go forward. Yes. And then the questions just go deeper and deeper until you deal with them or you don't. Do you think that it was a part of since you were in a predominantly white educational system that you're going through, that you felt like you had to conform not just with the hair, but with other aspects of your personality, your identity?
Absolutely. There's a section in my book where I talk about how hard it was being in middle school and high school in the area that I grew up in because it was predominantly white school. There were several other Black families and um, Black classmates that I had, but I never fit in with the um, my other Black classmates. All of my friends were predominantly white. And there was a season where I actually prayed for the Lord to change my race to being white because I wanted to fit in so bad. I dated white guys, I dated different guys, and so I wanted so badly to fit in, and uh, that never changed.
Yeah.
I'm still Black today, but during that season, that's what made sense.
And I'm glad of it. I think you are too. Okay, so what you just said, that people didn't see you and you didn't fit in, and you talked about the adoptee fog. We're going to talk more with Dr. Marianne McMillan. Bridging Resilience is our featured resource. You'll find it at the website, chrisfabrylive.org. Dr. Marianne McMillan is our guest today. She is the author of a new book. It comes out next week, Bridging Resilience, a guide to healing for adoptees and former foster youth, families, and the leaders who walk with them. Featured resource at the website, chrisfabrylive.org. So if that's where you are, if you are an adoptee or former foster youth, Section 1 is about 110 pages. Between Bridges and Ruins, Healing for Adoptees and Former Foster Youth. That's what we talked about pretty much the first half of the program. I want to pivot to the second section titled Sacred Privilege for Adoptive, Foster, and Guardian Parents, because this is going to give so much hope to people who are right there, or the people who love the people who are right there, which is a really important section. And we're going to talk about the church as well before we end here today. But Marianne, what do you say to the person who is raising a child, is struggling today? Is there a statistic that you can give me or paint a picture for what many of them go through?
Ooh, I don't have a statistic. But I know their journey is hard. And I know that there's a lot of people that are criticizing adopted and foster parents because of how they're parenting or just some of the race things. And it's hard. I know their journey is hard. But one thing that I talked about a lot in that section is I really want them to first walk through their own struggles and pain that they may be going through, to go to therapy themselves, do the hard work before they walk into the pain of their child and their own pain, and for them to be in community. You have to be in some type of community, whether it's in a church or fitness group or something, to have some type of outlet for you to really process what you're going through, because it is hard parenting children from hard backgrounds.
Yeah.
So when I wrote this book, I didn't want to actually write a parent section. I really wanted to just focus this book on adoptees and former foster youth, because there are so many parenting books out there. There's so many of them. But as I submitted the first manuscript, my editor kind of shared, she's like, Marianne, your audience still isn't clear. There's so many different people that you're addressing. And so I wrote the second one. It was still the same. And going into the third manuscript, I said, okay, I'm going to divide this book into 3 sections. And so I said, if this is my only time in life that I have the opportunity to write this book, I want to talk to all 3 areas. And so I wanted to share just some of the things that I've gone through as an adoptee that would be helpful for parents, give a little bit of encouragement, but also let them know that this is hard. And you have to remember your why of why you decided to foster and adopt.
For many of the adoptive or foster parents, though, they don't know the answers. They know the hard things that have happened, but they don't know specifics. And then they see behaviors and acting out, and they don't know how, where is this coming from? Is it something I have done? There's so many really hard questions that they're asking, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think the answer to that is all of the above. Honestly, I mean, you don't know your child's story. And you don't know your child's story, and you don't know how you're going to respond or react to your child's behavior. And so you have to know yourself really well in so many different situations. And for also, you cannot compare that child to your biological child, because of the pain and trauma that that child has gone through. And so I think that we have come so far in adopting and foster care research and training, since the 80s, because when my mom went through, there was no training on trauma at all. And so she did not have those tools or resources to really help my sister and I with some of the things that we dealt with. And so there are so many resources today. And so if you're not reading books or in help support groups, then you're going to struggle. And
And
then the other thing,
even if you are in a group, you're still going to struggle, but you're not going
you're
to do it
still going to
alone,
struggle.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I think the other thing is parents that I don't know if they're ignoring it or they just don't see that their child is struggling, because I hear parents say a lot, there's nothing wrong with my child. Like they're never gonna struggle. They're never gonna walk through, what you have gone through or what others have gone through. And I'm like, they are. It's not going to look the same for all of us, but at some point in their life, they are going to want to process their past. And a lot of that will come up. If it's not coming out in their childhood, it will come out later on in life when they're dealing with medical history stuff. That is
Yes.
one of the things that I've struggled with over the last few years, is some health concerns. And I'm always asked the question, well, tell me about your family history. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And so I've had to go back to some of my birth siblings to say, hey, does this illness run in the family, or
Hmm.
has this ever shown up, and to get that information. But I had an open adoption. They don't. A lot of these other kids don't. And so parents aren't able to have that information. So I
So
think
you
it's really
feel
helpful.
there's another aspect of isolation you feel on the outside.
Mhm.
You got to dig. You got to do some research work, detective work, just to find out, hey, did my biological parents have, problems with high blood pressure or whatever? Now
Mhm.
let me get Trisha in here because she has extended family members who are right in the center of this. Trisha, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for letting me ask this question. So I have several nieces and nephews who have been adopted, some out of foster care, some otherwise. But how can I, as an extended family member who does not necessarily see my nieces and nephews very frequently, how can I help the healing that they need to go through or will be going through as they get older and not hinder it? Because I know some of the details of their childhood, which I don't know, like I don't even know if they know that I don't know what the assumption is that who knows what, but, like you are aware of at least some of the trauma that they've gone through. And how do you help that healing when I'm with them, or supporting the parents or that kind of thing?
I think one of the ways is just being present, showing up to games or, birthday parties or big celebrations in their lives, weddings, graduation, letting them know that you were there. One of my aunt and my uncle, they were also my godparents. One thing with them, they were always there for every big thing in my life. And yes, they weren't there in the everyday weeds and whatnot, but I knew if I needed something, I could call them. And their presence was just so helpful for me. And therapy is not a fix all. Medication cannot fix everything. And so just being present and them knowing that you're there, it could be so helpful for them.
Hmm. What
That was
about
a great question.
the church then? And there's an extended church family, and then a child that is adopted or is fostered, but doesn't have that spiritual background. They have no idea, have your beliefs, or they ever read the Bible, or have much exposure to that at all. How do you sensitively allow a child to go at their own pace spiritually?
I think the parent has to do a good job of letting go of what they want or expect out of this child. If they have an older child that is not in the same faith as them, um, one, love and embrace them, figure out what they believe, but also let them know, hey, this is a Christian home. We go to church on Sundays. Understand this is going to be uncomfortable for you. And there are parents that do force their kids to go to church. And I've seen that there are parents who allow their kids to stay home or figure out, what other faith that they would like to be in. But you can't parent all of your children the same. And so you just have to connect with that child and figure out what would be helpful for them, not you thinking that this is helpful for them without actually having that conversation with them, if that makes sense.
What you're talking about is connection. You got to be
Absolutely. That's a better word. Yes.
Yeah. No, that makes all the sense in the world. But if you go into this, we're going to give this child a chance who's had a really hard time, and they're going to meet you met Jesus, but it wasn't until you went to college. They're going to meet Jesus. Their life is going to turn around. They're going to do great things for God, et cetera, et cetera. And they come in and they say, I don't want to go to that church. I don't like those people. You have to deal with that as the parent and go through a little bit of grief as well with what your expectations were. So all of this and more, Marianne deals with in her book. It's titled Bridging Resilience, A Guide to Healing for Adoptees and Former Foster Youth, Families, and the Leaders Who Walk with Them. It is one of those heart resources that I think is really going to help if this is where you are. Just go to chrisfabrylive.org and you'll see how to find the link right there to Bridging Resilience. More straight ahead. They're back. Tomorrow on Chris Fabry Live, the two Michaels return. They put the Lamb in Calamity, the Chat and Eschatology, and they're going to answer your questions about the Bible and the Christian life right here on this very channel. And I hope you'll join us then. Go on Facebook and ask a question of the two Michaels for tomorrow. I'll put a link up there for you or a question up there for you. And join us right here for Dr. Michael Rydelnik, Dr. Michael Van Lanningham, who are also, at least I know Dr. Rydelnik is included in This Is Moody Radio, 100 years proclaiming the gospel. He plays a pivotal role in the radio station, not for 100 years, but for the last few years. And I'd love to send that to you. We have that linked at chrisfabrylive.org. Oh, you got to have it. Scroll down, you'll see how you can give a gift of any size, and we'll send you this pictorial history and all the memorabilia, 100 years of Moody Radio. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. I'm so glad that Dr. Marianne McMillan has been with us today. She's written a book titled Bridging Resilience, featured resource at chrisfabrylive.org. And one of the things I had a star beside to ask you is this whole idea of grief and gratitude, how both of those kind of stay together, though you don't think of them at the same time. Tell me about that.
Yes, I know for me and several other adoptees, we live in this space of grief and gratitude, grieving the losses in our lives from our birth families, our medical histories, our culture, our race, the life, grieving the life that we wish we would have had, but also being in this space of gratitude and being grateful for some of the things in our lives. I know for me, I'm very grateful for my education, for the experiences that I've had. I've done work in 30 countries. I'm a professor. I mean, I just wrote a book. And so there are so many great things that came out of me being adopted. But then I have days where I feel guilty for the life that I have. And knowing that like my other siblings weren't adopted. So I'm constantly living in this space of grief and gratitude. And I will always live in both of those spaces.
And again, healing from that is not getting over it and getting past it. It's staying in it and telling yourself the truth, both of those truths, that there is something to grieve, but there's also something to be grateful for, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is the recurring struggle that you have? Because you've been dealing with this for decades now. But is there something that comes up in your life now that you have that pinpoints, maybe as part of the trauma of your childhood, that comes up when you least expect it, and you still have to deal with it, and you say to yourself, "Why am I still dealing with this? I should have had this." Does anything come to mind?
Yes, there's a few things. One, I struggle with anxiety. I talked about that in my book. Just so much stress and life circumstances that I've gone through in life. I struggle with anxiety, and I am taking a medication now for my anxiety, which has been really helpful, and therapy has been really helpful for me. But also, one of the big areas is being fully known. I think I'm still struggling with the piece of belonging. Like, I know who I am in Christ. I have, the community that I need, but it comes up a lot in friendships and relationships. I've had so many people walk in and out of my life since the day that I was born. And so it's hard for me to build relationships or stay in friendships with people because something may happen and they leave. And so that constant feeling of abandonment and rejection comes up a lot. And I have such an amazing group of friends right now who constantly remind me, hey, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. We may have, a rupture in our relationship, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to walk away from you. And so finding that great community has been hard for me, but now I have it. And so reminding myself that not everybody's going to leave.
So what I hear you say is abandonment, or if you get to a certain level in a relationship, a certain depth in a relationship where you start to rely, not in a negative way, but where this person is important in your life, if they go away, then it's kind of a double wound because you've trusted them and now they're going away. So that is part of the trauma that you have to deal with.
Absolutely. Not just with friendships and relationships, but also supervisors. I've had several supervisors in life who they don't want to connect with their employees. They don't want to get a chance to know them. We'll hear all about their lives, but they won't connect with us. And that is really hard for me as an adoptee because it's still a form of rejection for me. And so I am a huge advocate of making sure everybody in my life is seen and heard. And I just want others to do that for me as well. And it doesn't always happen.
We've touched on this. What can the church do better with this big group of people in our society?
Have space for them. I think that the church shows up for Adoption Day or leading up to adoption, but then they're gone. And so have long-term trainings or ministries for foster and adopted families. And I know some churches do, but they mainly focus on the adoption process or training. They're still not there afterwards. And that's one thing that I hear from parents all the time is, yes, my church has this ministry, but there's not much that they can do for us, or they're not doing much for us. I know a lot of churches have special needs ministries or special needs groups for children, but it's mainly focusing on kind of physical needs. And these special needs groups aren't focusing on the trauma. And so if you have a child that has been in foster care or adopted and they're sitting in these Bible studies or youth groups and they're having behavior problems, they just kind of take them out, put them into a different room, and they're not able to address those issues. And so I think the church can do a better job in that area. The other area is not putting adopted and foster families on a pedestal. And so I love Adoption Day, Adoption Month, but there's a lot of times where they focus on families and they put them up on these pedestals. and the focus is more on the parents and not actually the child. And that's where that saviorism stuff comes out, with what a lot of adoptees actually hate and they complain about. So that's another area that the church can do a better job with.
Okay, lightning round. What is one question you wish people would ask adoptees more often?
Ooh. Ask me about how I'm doing today. Don't focus on my past. Like, let me share about my successes or the places that I'm wanting to go or things that I'm wanting to achieve. Don't hear that I'm adopted and then want to ask all of these questions about my past or my birth family. That's one thing.
I like that. And that's, you notice that's the first thing I asked you was how you doing, but I don't, that was kind of how we began the program.
Yes.
Marianne, you're just this breath of fresh air. And I'm so grateful that you have taken, the hard stuff, the wound, that you've run toward it rather than away from it. And you've dealt with it. And now that place of healing in your own heart, as you continue to walk toward healing, that place of healing is going to spill out to other people. And it's happened here today. And so thank you for being faithful with the pain and the struggle, and keep doing what you're doing, friend, okay?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Marianne McMillan, again, former foster youth and adoptee. Her life has been shaped by the realities that we've been talking about here today, and she's written this guide to healing for adoptees and former foster youth, for families and the leaders who walk with them. It's titled Bridging Resilience. 2 words, Bridging Resilience. You can find it at our website, chrisfabrylive.org. Scroll down, you'll see, or you can go through the program page and listen to the program again. Maybe suggest it to somebody else that you know who's walking this trail. Just go to chrisfabrylive.org. Again, the title is Bridging Resilience. And don't you dare miss the 2 Michaels. They are coming back tomorrow right here on Chris Fabry Live to answer questions about the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, everything in between and even more. Just listen right here on Chris Fabry Live, production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.